Okay, hi everyone. We're back, and today I'm talking to Jim Fisher again. We had such a great conversation last time, and there's so much to talk about, so much more. So here we are back again. Hi, Jim.
Hello, how are you, Sharon?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for being here again.
I enjoy these conversations.
Good, good. Yeah,
I hope
same
your
here.
listeners find it enjoyable as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. So I thought we'd just talk about, or actually, you and I both discussed talking about some really cool stuff that esoteric stuff, I guess you could say, and which in my mind doesn't seem to be so weird anymore. People are waking up and people are understanding maybe what's really going on with our consciousness. And you sent me some things that you'd like to cover a little bit, and so you know, we can go that way to start first. And I love that you started out with Martin Luther, maybe a little bit of history on Martin Luther in light of Martin Luther King Day this week. And so, not a lot of people know who Martin Luther is, who lived, 500 so years ago, and how important he is in our history.
Hmm.
Do you mind sharing what you know about him and his journey?
Yes, Martin Luther, I believe, was a Catholic priest. Now, at that time, there weren't Protestant churches. There were just one Christian church, unless you consider the Eastern Orthodox. But um, in any event, Martin Luther took exception with some of the underlying beliefs of the church. Perhaps the best known are indulgences, where you could uh, pay for releasing loved ones from serving in purgatory. You know, that people would die and they have to go someplace and serve penance, and you could help reduce the amount of time they spend in penance by paying money to the church for indulgences. So his one of his theses was that this isn't right. But the net impact of what he did, putting his 95 theses up, was it started, a lot of people would say that was what started the Protestant Reformation. So all these denominations, Lutheranism, Presbyterian, Baptist, all these Christian denominations grew out of that Reformation period. So here we are 500 years later. Um, we still, if you look at the Christian community, of which the bulk of my life still am engaged in that, you're seeing a decline in interest, and people just are not joining the church. And as older people die away, congregations are becoming smaller. So I'm kind of the opinion that, gee, we're 500 years later. We've learned a lot, particularly in the last, say, 100 years. What would we say that we should? How should we change and evolve our religious thinking to be more aligned with the evidence that we have, more aligned with the experiences people like you are having? Um, I guess we could talk a little bit about truth. This notion that we do strive for truth. I think humanity has a tendency to want to find truth,
Mhm.
but how do we know when we have it? Um, let's use the example of people believing many centuries ago that the sun was, or the earth was, the center of the universe. I mean, you could see the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. The natural conclusion is we must be the center. The sun's going around us. We must be the center of everything. And it wasn't until somebody started looking at the stars and the motion of the stars, and they realized, wait a minute, this, what I'm seeing doesn't jive with that thesis. Um, and you can't really put that into a laboratory and study it, but you can come to a different truth by looking at various evidence that, and I think the same thing can be said for where we are right now. We'll talk about what is the evidence, but I think there's a lot of evidence that says our core Christian beliefs need to evolve. and we move closer to truth with a capital T, and shed the things that, like the Earth being the center of the universe, shed the things that don't seem to comport with what the evidence shows.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that for me, I've learned over the millions, thousands of years of life on this planet. I finally learned, I don't know, but the only truth is that we are love, and the rest is illusion. So it depends on what truth we want, what resonates with us. I mean, because I know that we create our own reality, and then there's
Hmm.
uh, then our personal consciousness, which we we maneuver through, and there's influences there as well. And then the larger consciousness, where the same influences are happening, but we're still in charge of creating what we want, the choices we make every day, and those truths, and then so on, and move out to bigger and bigger, larger consciousnesses, where we can find a bigger T for truth. And once we connect to source, God, that remember that we are love in form, in this matrix, this smaller matrix, this, we're all a matrix. In my experience is that's my truth. Then I was kind of hit over the head with a 2x4 to realize that the rest, this is, I saw the matrix. I think, I don't know if I shared it in a grocery
This
store.
is in
Yeah.
your near-death experience, right?
No, well, that was part of it, but then since I'm an out of body traveler, a
Yep.
lot of that happened, and it's all together anyway, right?
Hmm.
But I was grocery shopping in a matrix. I mean, yeah, it was a matrix, but I was grocery shopping, and just all of a sudden everything disappeared, everything that I could see around me, and I could see the blue green lines of the grid of the matrix, and it lasted for about almost 3 seconds, which is quite a long time when you think about it. That I knew it wasn't just a flash, it was there. And I realized, and this was about 20 years ago, and I realized, okay, and this confirms for me that this is an illusion. And I was having out of body experiences where they kept telling me to go through the grid, go through it, get higher, go through the grid. So I digress here, but I think that it's really important for people to find their own truth, right? And then as we move into and use our intuition, discernment, uh, research, whatever you want to call it, one thing might resonate to you one day, and then something happens where you get something else and it resonates with you the next day. And then a lot of people, especially now, are having belief system crashes, where what you thought to be true today is all of a sudden not true at all. And I went
Hmm.
through a couple of those myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that experience you had in the grocery store or while shopping,
Hmm.
um, leading up to that, you'd had out of body experiences. So I assume, so this wasn't a spiritual emergency for you. You just kind of, oh, look at this. It was, for you, it was a natural experience, right?
It was, well, I
Was
wouldn't
it
call it
frightening?
natural. It
Well,
wasn't frightening. It was shocking more than frightening.
okay.
It freaked me out. And I wouldn't call it frightening, because the energy around me was loving. It was
Mhm.
more of just showing me something. And they showed it to me by, well, my higher self, and all my spirit team, my unseen helpers, um, showed me something that I already knew on a higher level. So I showed myself this. I saw through the veil and saw the grid, and I was surrounded with love, and I knew it was an experience with love. So it just freaked me out
Yeah.
totally. I couldn't tell anybody about it back then.
So one thing I guess I'd like to emphasize, or maybe focus on, this experience you had allowed you to see beyond just this physical reality.
Yes.
And that's one of the key things, I think, in an evolving understanding of our spiritual nature, is that there is a legitimate non-physical reality that probably is if you listen to near-death experiencers, when they are in that state, they say it's more real than what we experience here.
I would agree
It's
with
hard
that.
for us to understand
Hmm.
because all, unless you've had that experience, all you have to judge things by is what we experience in this physical reality. But I think that's one of the theses, that if we we're going to come up with a new set of theses, this non-physical realm exists. And that's where we go. Um, some people, like yourself, can go there through out-of-body experiences while you're still in this physical life form. But the vast majority of us have to wait until we actually leave the body permanently to experience that. But it's a reality. It's not a physical reality, but it's a reality all the same.
Well, it feels very physical, and I believe that it is physical. It's just a different type of physical. It's
Mhm.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
maybe
Yeah.
that's a good
But
point. It's
but
like
you're right.
the light spectrum.
Hmm.
Well, maybe that would be a good way to compare it. We exist, like the light spectrum. What we can see in visible light is just a portion of the total electromagnetic spectrum.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when we depart the band of vibrational frequency we experience, maybe it's good to say, yeah, it is another reality, and it's a it's a different vibration, and maybe it's not appropriate to call it non-physical.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe,
I struggle with that too, with the
it's
terminology.
it's not
Yeah.
the same physical that we experience here, but if you listen, your out of body experiences and all that I've read of people and known people who've done it, um, it sounds like it's, can be every bit, it seem every bit as physical as what we have here on certain levels. Other levels, you get to higher levels, the higher the vibrational level,
Right.
I suspect the less physical it feels and the more esoteric it feels.
Yeah. With the the physical feeling of it is actually feels more physical here, and I've equated to wearing gloves here and having blinders on our eyes, or filters over our sight. I'll never forget, my guide grabbed my hand, and I could feel every line in his hand, every, you know, everything. It was just, it was more than, because it, and I remember thinking, I can't, that's stuff, I don't feel that here.
Hmm.
And um and then also your, your sight, everything depends on what frequency you're at, but when you get to a higher frequency, the colors are brighter. They're the 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 flowers sing to you. It's just so amazing, and they have a consciousness, and they're sentient, and it's this right here is, I'll never forget. I saw my mother on Venus after she passed, and I asked her, I said, Mom, do you like Venus better than Earth? And she said, being on Earth is like being stuck in the mud.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's just, we're just so slow moving here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So physical, I guess, is kind of a misnomer. Maybe it's just on what's, like you said, what spectrum of frequency
Hmm.
you're in. But it's, we have very, very full lives,
Yeah.
and we're doing it
Well,
now.
and purposeful lives.
Hmm.
There's a reason we're here.
Yeah.
So that kind of opens up another component of this, the idea of reincarnation. You
Yeah.
know, we we're living. There's a lot of evidence that would indicate that we reincarnate.
Hmm.
Um, you know, people who can remember past lives. Um, the interesting evidence is with young children who have these remembrances of past lives, 3, 4, even young as 2 years old. As soon as they begin speaking, they start talking about things they remember, and then the researchers go out and find out, in fact, that there's what they remember is accurate. In another town, the family that they remembered being a part of actually lived there, and their description of the street matches what the actual street is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
There's a book written. Have you read the book written about children's past lives? I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's Children in Their Past Lives or something like that. It's a compilation of children who remember their past lives and
Yeah, there
all
are a
the evidence for it.
couple researchers, Jim Tucker and Ian Stevenson at the
I think it's Ian
university.
Stevenson's book. Yeah.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
anybody's interested in reading about that, look up a book by either Jim Tucker or even Ian Stevenson.
Yeah.
That'll give you a good sense for the evidence that supports this. It's not just a theological concept.
No, and I remember lots and lots of past lives on my own, and my teachers, my guide helped me remember these for healing purposes during my meditations, and no one can tell me that these are not my experiences because they're just as real as this
Yeah.
lifetime experience. And my motto is if um, if God only gave us one life to get things right, then we got gypped because I see it as they're all continuations, like different experiences we come here to experience. And so whatever experience that is, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, so that we can have those experiences and bring those into source and also have empathy for others. And
Yeah, it's interesting to think about what would be the purpose for reincarnation. I've been a member of a what was one time called a men's Bible study group, and the scope of what we talked about expanded sufficiently. We said we need to call ourselves something different, faith exploration group.
no, like that, yeah.
So at one time we were talking about reincarnation, and one of the guys said to me, I don't understand, if we knew that we had more opportunities to come back and live again, why wouldn't I just live a life of hedonism and do whatever I wanted to? And my response to him, I don't know if this is, how close to truth this is, but I said, well, maybe one way to look at it is like, this is a school, and you can come to second grade and fool around and be the class clown, but you might have to do second grade over again.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of looked at me and said, yeah, that makes sense. So I think there's a purpose to this, that we are evolving. We come here individually and collectively to have experiences that are helping us as a species, not, well, maybe beyond the species, but how do animals and plants fit into this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with it. I always say that even people who are aware on this planet probably aren't past fourth grade in the scheme of things. So, because we're not very smart on this planet compared to the universes that we are a part of. Yeah, I like that. I also, with reincarnation, I totally believe that it's for experience. And if we want to learn and grow, that's part of it too. Um, Definitely. But I kind of look at it as we already know all this. It's just that it's been removed, because of the veil of forgetfulness, it's been removed so we can um, enjoy the whole spectrum of learning, growing, loving, and interacting, with our community, with each other, and we're just all sparks off of the sun of source.
Have you read the any of the books in the Conversations with God series?
Oh yes, yeah. That was one of my awakening books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the notion is kind of appeals to me from a thoughtful perspective. We all come from divinity. We're an offshoot of source.
hmm
While when we're in that environment, um, we don't have as much of an appreciation for it as we have when we come and we're out of it. When the contrast, when we come into
Right.
this physical reality, the contrast is so stark that when we do go back and become a part of that just love and source, we have a greater appreciation for it.
hmm Yeah, totally. Only the brave come here is what I keep hearing. Yeah, because it's a tough frequency. It's a tough dimension. One book, I don't know if are you familiar with Journey of Souls by
Yes.
Dr. Michael Newton? Okay.
Yep.
I think those books, Journey of Souls, for people that are watching, if you haven't read those, I mean, those are just they should be required reading. in school for everyone.
Yeah.
Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls goes really a long way toward us helping us understand life between lives, when we talk with our guides about our experience. And I don't agree with everything that's in there, but I realized that his clients were coming from different perspectives, right? But to me, it helped a lot with helping us understand that this is not all there is. This is far from what all there is. And that, yeah, that we don't, we don't die. We just keep, we're eternal, and we just keep on going and experience and learn and grow and have fun. Yeah.
There's another author who, I think his name is Robert Schwartz, who worked with mediums to
Mm-hmm.
help people connect with their guides and review what their life plans were. He took a little different approach. And in his book, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but
Write that down. Robert Schwartz.
his clients were experiencing some major difficulties. Loss of a child to suicide, for example, a spousal relationship falling apart due to alcoholism, cancer. Um, and from a human perspective, you'd think, why would anybody choose to have a life with those kind of elements in it? But in Schwartz's book, in connecting with higher spirit guides and guidance, his clients would learn how these, from a human perspective, very distasteful experiences fit into a broader scheme of things.
Yeah. I've learned what I think we would just remember things rather than learn them. We already know all this. We're just remembering.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. Um, I believe that we choose challenging experiences for soul growth, right? So that we can have those experiences, and because the goal is to experience everything. And but sometimes, and I teach this in my class, and I use this uh, in my practice, is soul retrieval.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and I'm interrupting myself, but my guides taught me that during my past life memories, when they were bringing them up, that I had lots and lots and lots of traumatic experiences that they helped me to heal and bring forward into source. So it's my belief that we have challenging experiences, but because this frequency, this 3D frequency, or we're moving into the higher ones, but is so slow, and the emotions are so embedded in us when we do have trauma, when we die, or we're in that lifetime, that so a lot of times we can get stuck on the earth plane, still in that life or in that loop. And so what we have to do, and we forgot how, it's been programmed out of us, to capture those parts of us so that we can bring what we do is we have patterns of experiences where we come back and reincarnate, trying to heal that experience again, or choose it again with some form of it, so that we can get through that program, bring it into this lifetime, capture it, and say, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore, I'm going to move on. And so as we do that, and I think this is the most important work we can do actually for our soul growth and our healing, is to capture those parts of us that are what I see as scattered. So finding
Mm-hmm.
pieces of the puzzle and bringing them in, and understanding that we don't need to, carry that around with us anymore. We don't need to repeat that pattern. And
How
anyway,
about
we were
this?
talking.
If we're successful at that,
Uh-huh.
would you agree with the concept that at some point we won't have to reincarnate in this physical realm? We'll move on to something else.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're getting there with this ascension process. What we're going through, from we're moving very quickly into 5D. So
I have a story I'll share with you. Of course, you're familiar with the Monroe Institute.
Mhm.
I met a guy at the Lifeline program there. I can't remember his last name. His first name was Krish. He was from India.
Mhm.
And we got a friendship developed, and he shared with me an experience he had had. He had gone in India to visit a guru, um, and his guru would have these public things from time to time, and they're primarily for healing. But you could go and ask him for guidance on things. So Krish went to see this guru, and in the room with him was a young family with a boy who was apparently crippled. They were waiting, every participant was waiting for their turn to go into the other room with the guru. So the guru came out at one point and came over to the young family and gave a piece of candy to the young boy. Um, Krish didn't think much of it, and I'll come back to this in a minute. When it was Krish's turn to go in and see the guru, his question was, do I need to come back for another incarnation? And the guru said, well, let me check with my higher source. And he went into a meditative state, and he came back and said, no, it appears you don't have to. Then the guru put his hands out, and Krish watched as I don't remember what it was, but it was an icon of something appeared, manifested in the guru's hands, in something from nothing. And it
Wow.
was a gift to Krish. Well, after everybody who had been there had gone through their private sessions, it was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. And the guru wanted to take everybody for a walk around the grounds. Well, to Krish's amazement, this young boy was hopping and skipping along. He had been healed. Whatever it was that was his problem had now been healed. Um, the guru led them up this little hillock, and there were a lot of stones around. And the guru picked up various pieces of stone and handed them to each of the participants. And then he instructed them to eat. And Krish, of course, followed the instructions. It wasn't stone. Apparently it was rock candy. You could say that maybe somebody placed it there ahead of time, or is it also possible if this guru could manifest something in his hand,
Yeah.
he could also cause rocks to convert to rock candy?
Sure.
It
Wow.
sounds pretty far out there, but from what I've seen, all the experiences that I've had, bending spoons and the readings that I've done, I think that this reality is pretty malleable, and it's quite possible that
Totally.
that's what happened.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, but I did not read autobiography of a yogi, but I'm listening to it now, and he does talk about Paramahansa Yogananda. He does talk about gurus that he went to visit when he was younger, who would do those exact same things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just so much we can do. The mind is so powerful, and we've been programmed to think that we don't have that power, but we do. And
Yeah.
we don't understand how really powerful we are.
So here's a question for you. You've done a lot of out of body travel. I remember reading a story, not a story, an account that I think it was Jürgen Ziwe. Is that how you
Yes,
pronounce his name?
Jürgen Ziwe.
Uh, he, in one of his out of body travels, he was uh, in this party atmosphere, and there was a young man who was acting as a servant to all the other people there. Do you remember the story?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jurgen asked him, well, why aren't you partying like everybody else? And the young man replied, well, I lived a life that was very self-centered, and I took advantage of people, and I need to cultivate more of a servant caring for others, and therefore that's why I'm doing this. I'm acting as a servant over here. So that's an interesting comment. We don't just learn in this physical environment. We also apparently have lessons to learn when we pass to whatever the next dimension is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's. I actually have had an out of body experience where I've had. I have a home on the other side
Hmm.
We have homes, we have, things that we enjoy. We're able to
A
do things that we
home that
enjoy.
you probably created, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's not just doesn't just pop up. You actually
no,
had a hand in creating
yes,
it.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I have, I wouldn't call them servants, but I have, yeah, what you would call someone like that in this home. I've never had that in this life. So, but I know that they are there um, to help me to be of service, because they are working on their karma, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And so there's all kinds of things we can do on in the higher frequencies across the veil to help alleviate, just
So
like here.
here's another point I'd like to see what your thoughts are on. In when we talk about these things, a man being a servant to others, in your case, having servants helping you in your home, my sense is, and this is where I'd like to see what your thoughts are, we got to be careful we don't think that we're better
Mhm.
than someone else, that your
Right.
servants are have as much divinity within them as anybody else, and it's just an opportunity for growth.
Right. Well, when you're in that frequency, you know that you
Hmm.
you you are um, of that mindset already. So it isn't something you have to remember. In my experience, that you have to remember there. Now, here's a different story, right? Because we've got so much that we're bombarded with, and we've got our stuff that we're working on. But there, it's a much different story. Your thoughts are um, you can't hide your thoughts, and so you wouldn't be in that position if there was that judgment
Yeah.
about someone. Yeah. And I just remember when I was with them, how they felt like family. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It was that banter, like with you and me. It wasn't
Yeah.
anything that where they were my servants. They were there to be of service in the way that they chose. And I must have known them in some life. Maybe they did me wrong in a life. I don't know. I didn't get the details of that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So one of the lessons I think from that, and getting back to what theses might we put forward,
Hmm.
um, we all are divine. And these divisions that we create here are just illusions.
Right.
And if we reincarnate, I remember I used to participate in a group meditation, and the woman who ran it, they tend to be, it was a 2 hour evening, and you had maybe a 20 or 30 minute meditation with music in the background, and then you take a break for 10 minutes, maybe talk a little bit about what you experienced, and then you go into another meditation.
Hmm.
Well, Julie Lapham was the woman who ran this thing. She was an interesting woman. Uh, Sometimes the music she'd play would be hard drumming music. And I remember one experience where I felt as if I was a Black African woman, and that I needed to
Mm,
get up and dance to the music in an African dance. So
nice.
when we were done with the meditation, I commented on this, and Julie said, "Well, why didn't you, Jim?"
Right. That's what I was thinking.
But
So
part of the point is that maybe I was a Black woman in Africa at one point in a
I would
past
say
life,
trust that.
and
Yeah.
if we don't, I had another past life review that I did. It was just a brief thing, but I might have talked about this in the prior one. I was a young woman, and I experienced what it was like as that young woman to be much more emotionally open than I currently am.
Hmm.
So I had a chance to be another aspect of myself and re-experience that emotional openness. And I thought, boy, this is really something. I'm at risk by being emotionally open, that I can
Yeah.
be hurt by people more readily, but um, it was kind of eye-opening to experience that.
Yeah. In terms of reincarnation, um, now I know that reincarnation has been, well, I don't know, but I've heard and I understand it to be true, has been written out of the Bible pretty much. And I I believe that Jesus, who I call Yeshua, actually talked about reincarnation, and he's the one who taught me about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked with me. So no one can tell me that's not true. And I know there's a lot of conversations with, especially fundamental Christians about that reincarnation isn't real, and it's because it's not in the Bible. But I do know that there are some quotes. Maybe you can since you study the Bible, can remind me what
Yeah,
they are.
I can't quickly pull up. There are some passages in the Bible that,
Hmm.
um, was it Elisha or Elijah? One or the other was taken up and was reborn.
Hmm.
I can't tell you what passage it was, but I've studied what a lot of biblical scholars say, and it's interesting when we in this contemporary age we have adopted views that aren't consistent with. For example, another thesis that I would say is if you look at near-death experiences, first you have to accept that near-death experiences are real.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of evidence, and we could go into that for hours talking about the evidence, but
Sure.
near-death experiences give us a picture of what's on the other side. If you look at the research that's been done, good book, it's called the Handbook of Near-Death Experiences. It's a compendium of research over the past 30 years. But you find that near-death experiences happen around the world. It doesn't matter what your belief system is, you can have this experience. But it's also true that the belief system you have, if you were raised in a Hindu environment, then there are likely to be Hindu tones to what you experience. If
Hmm.
you're Christian, you're more like, you won't find a Hindu person generally meeting Jesus,
Hmm.
but you'll find Christians that meet Jesus. You
Hmm.
might find Muslims who are meeting the prophet. So to me, that says your belief that you carry with you can influence what you experience on the other side.
Totally.
So if you are being taught that you're a sinner and that the only way that you can avoid going to hell is to declare Jesus your Lord and Savior and be born again, and taking a step further, go out and proselytize and convince others to follow this path, um, that needs to drop by the wayside
Hmm.
because it's not consistent with the evidence and it harms. If you believe that you should experience hell because you don't might not tell people you're a sinner, but if you're told you are a sinner over and over again and you think you are, well, it could be that when you transition to the other side, like you created your house,
Yeah.
your belief system could create a hell for you.
Oh,
It's,
exactly. And that is what happens because I do spirit rescue,
yeah,
and I record my sessions and a lot of them, and I have recordings of actually spirit asking for help, and this is what they're saying. They think they're being punished. Yeah, they don't. They yeah. It's I find that a lot that that mindset in Christianity is a big hindrance for a lot of people to be able to move into the light, or to to remember that they are light, they are source, and
yeah.
there is no
So that's
judgment.
one of the more important theses in my mind is
Yeah.
drop the notion that there's this heaven and hell and that most of us are sinners. We're divine. At
Right.
our core, we are divine. We're an offshoot of the divine. Celebrate that instead of playing up the negatives. Yeah,
Well,
we do
Michael
things.
Newton even, yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, we do. Yeah, we do things that, from a human perspective, are bad,
Hmm.
um, but we don't really know what somebody else's purpose is for behaving the way they do.
Right.
If Michael Newton's work, as you're going to say,
Yes.
if we plan the major things that are going to happen, and some of these things are challenging, what are we learning from it? How are we evolving? How is it benefiting us? And as humans, it's unless you adopt a broader perspective, if you only look at things from a human perspective, you won't begin to appreciate the value of these things.
Right. Yeah, and Michael Newton's books, I think, help us understand that we don't, hell is self-made. It's in our mind, and it's how we punish ourselves and we judge ourselves. And by reviewing our life, we have life reviews after we pass, after we transition, and so that's where we learn and figure out what, how we could have done better, or if we, did I do everything I wanted to do? Did I grow the way I wanted to grow? And so we have to have that. We need that so we can plan our next go around. But I will add one thing, Jim, before you.
Hmm.
Uh, I would say that not only near-death experiences teaches us that we live on, but also out-of-body experiences, what we call out-of-body experiences, does as well. And I hesitate to call them out-of-body experiences anymore because I don't think we leave our body. I think we just raise our frequency.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned reviews a minute ago.
Hmm.
Maybe another thesis that I would put up on the church door would be when we pass, if we have a review, it's not somebody else reviewing us and judging us. It's us judging ourselves. What did
Right.
I experience it? And we're accompanied in that review by loving entities. They help us see what we accomplished, what we experienced, but there's no judgment. And the only judgment, if there is any, it's ourselves when we get a chance to experience how we impacted others. Were we loving? Did we affect people in a positive way, or did we affect them in a negative way? In a lot of cases, people report not only these life reviews from their perspective, but they got a chance to experience from the people they interacted with. How did they feel?
Totally.
When I hurt somebody, I felt their pain.
Totally.
When I loved somebody and offered help to somebody, I experienced their thankfulness that I was there.
Yeah, you experience what the other side is experiences, and that doesn't even, not only people but animals, you know, uh,
Yeah.
everything that you interact with, everything and everyone that you interact with, you experience that on that. You experience the bad and the good,
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing when you think about how we um, how we help ourselves.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just so complex how Source has designed
Yeah.
our experiences, and these are really exciting times. And so, as we wake up and realize how immense we are, and that we have so much, um, we have such a huge um, support system just across the veil, and
Yeah,
we're,
the
yeah,
complexity of the other side of the veil is immense.
it is, yeah.
Um, I would think, I'd be interested in hearing some of the breadth of your out of body experiences, and maybe that's a whole subject for another sit
Yeah.
down together,
Yeah. Well, I'm,
because there's so much to get out of that.
it's, I've journaled over 800 in the
Yeah.
last, I guess it's almost 20 years, but in some I haven't journaled at all, but, the little ones, but, they're not really little, but some I forget to write down, and then it's gone just like a dream.
So
But
do you get a
one,
chance in these out of body experiences? Do you sometimes set your intent for what you want to experience, who you want to see, or where you want to go?
yeah, I used to run a group where we would meet at a certain place, and like Stonehenge or Shasta or whatever, and then we would set our intention on a certain night, and then we would share our experiences
Hmm.
and what we saw and what we experienced or what we felt, and we did get quite a few hits.
Yeah.
It was very cool. So in that context, yes, I did. Most of the time now, it's just I because I'm not running that group anymore, but I do set the intention to find my guides. Yeah, because that's who I want to be with, and learn as much as I can. Well, remember, learn how to help here. But I've been noticing recently, last 2, 3 weeks or months, that I'm seeing glimpses of what's going on now. I was seeing lots of glimpses back then about this war we're in, and I was seeing a lot of glimpses, and it seems like the glimpses I'm getting are getting closer and closer to where them happening. You know what I mean? I
So
don't.
explain that a little bit further. So you were having like premonitions or views
Mhm.
of the future,
Yes.
and are you saying that when these first were happening, it was far enough out, but
Mhm.
you're finding that the perceptions are happening, what's occurring is happening more close to what you're perceiving from a time perspective?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
and what kinds of things are you seeing? We've talked a little bit about the awakening.
Mhm.
Is that what you're talking about, or are they just events that you're seeing?
I'm seeing events, and they're symbolic as well as, I mean, it's like a dream. Sometimes you don't understand what's going on. You just know that this is what's happening in your dream, and you don't understand the meaning of it always until later, if it's, especially if it's a premonition, most of the time. Because as you know, in the dream world, in the out of body experience is very similar to, usually, to the dream world, where it's happening, uh, like, say, I mean, an out of body, say we're in an out of body experience now.
Hmm.
Okay, there's so much going on around us, and that we don't understand might be part of what, of something to happen in the future. And so when we come back to our body, we don't really put any emphasis on it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Until later, we're like, oh, hey, that
That's
bird
what
that
that meant.
just flew over my head,
Uh,
that meant something when it didn't mean anything in the experience, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but I do remember one very clear out of my experience, where I'm standing with my guides and looking down on a coastline and see battleships. And I knew that it was on the East Coast. I knew that. And I thought at the time, and when I'm in the experience, I'm just kind of neutral.
Hmm.
But now here I realize, okay, I was, now oh, okay, hey, there's, that happened. It's happening. So things like that. And you know, yeah, but they're getting closer and closer. I noticed as I
Yeah,
travel.
I see a lot of, now you approach these things from a psychic perspective, um, and I look at things. I don't see myself as having strong psychic capability in this incarnation. I look at things from a logical perspective, and I see synchronicities, things that happen, and you know, this happened, and look what grew out of that. This happened, and look what grew out of that.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm seeing more and more of those synchronicities instead of once every few years something. I see it a lot more frequency these days.
Hmm.
How things seem to be fitting together.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I believe that we're getting so much information. I mean, we are getting so much information, but we're getting so many signs from spirit, from our higher self, source, however you want to word it, all around us. Synchronicities, like you said, all around us.
Mhm.
And so paying attention is our job,
Yeah.
right? Paying attention. And also, you may be noticing this too, Jim, is when you put something out to the universe now, if you want to create something, I say, I sure would like I don't know, I'd like an iced tea right now. And all of a sudden, it's almost like instantaneous. Somebody hands you a bottle of tea, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, things are just happening so quickly.
So I'm going to put a little plug in for a friend of mine, Jose Hernandez. Um, Jose had a near-death experience, and on the other side, he was bathed in beautiful colors that helped heal him of the physical problems he was having. When he came back, it took him a long time to fully recover and to integrate his experience, but he put his mind to trying to recreate this art in digitally. And I met him when we both jointly served on the board of directors of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. We weren't on all that long, maybe a year's time, but our paths crossed there and a friendship developed. And I'm seeing this world opening up to him. He was part of a Netflix series, one of the people on this Surviving Death series that was released on January 6th.
I'll have to watch that.
Next week he's going to be on Dr. Oz, or he's going to be filmed for a Dr. Oz program. There's a large Canadian cable system that wants to do a special on his work.
Wow.
I
Nice.
talk to him probably 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times a week, and I get a chance to see this, how this is unfolding from a friend's perspective. He kind of sensed that this was going to go somewhere, but we couldn't tell back when we were on the board together where it was going to go. But now it's unfolding, and it's so fun to. His artwork is now being tested in some hospitals to see whether or not this can affect the health outcomes of patients.
Wow, that's amazing.
He had a conversation a few weeks ago with an Israeli group, and they were so taken with what he's doing that they've got a major Israeli hospital system that wants to join this effort.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
I love that.
Well, if anybody has an interest, we have there's a website called consciousness-cafe.com. And this week, Jose is giving us a meditation with his art. So if you can become a member of Consciousness Cafe, it doesn't cost anything, but by becoming a member, you can get a free streaming of his art with his meditation.
Yeah, I saw last time we talked. I signed up there. There was a problem with the putting in my email address for your newsletter.
Yeah, this site is so new.
Okay.
We are working at it's a work in progress.
Okay.
But if you go back this week, we added a membership function.
Okay, cool.
So you don't just sign up for a newsletter. You become a member. You get this free download. There's another benefit of becoming a member. There's a library on this site. So if you want to find a good book to read on out-of-body experiences, you can go into our library, type in the tag OBE, and a list of relevant books will show up with some reviews.
Nice.
If you're a member of Consciousness Cafe, you can submit recommendations for books you'd like to see added to the library and have your reviews of those books. So I think you've written a book, right?
I'm in the process.
Okay. Well, when you get that, if you become a member of Consciousness Cafe, when your book is available, you can go in and have that added to our library.
Nice. Oh, that sounds awesome. Cool.
We have the concept is being developed where we want to become a directory of metaphysical things. So if you want to join a group, if you want to find a book on a subject, if you want to have an experience, you want to meet a psychic or a healer, it's going to take a while to build this out, but we'd like to become a place where people can go to get information on where they can connect with others and participate in this awakening.
That's what we need. That's definitely what we need. So when is the meditation?
When is it? Mm-hmm. Well, the meditation is available on site. So the program, we're having a meetup, by the way, on February 5th.
Okay.
It's being sponsored by the Rhine Center, the Monroe Institute, and Consciousness Cafe.
February 5th. And this is where your friend is going to be leading a meditation?
No, he and another near-death experiencer who was on that program, and the book author, Surviving Death. series, the Netflix series, is based on the book that Leslie Kane wrote.
Okay.
So Leslie will participate. There'll be a panel of 3 people that'll be talking about the Surviving Death series and their experience with it. And if people have an interest in meeting some interesting people.
And that's in the February 5th
That's right.
meetup. Okay. But you had mentioned that your friend was, I thought I heard you had mentioned your friend was leading a meditation where he's showing his art.
He recorded a meditation.
Oh, he recorded
that
it. Okay.
That can be streamed. So if you're a member of Consciousness Cafe,
Gotcha. Okay.
you can go in and
Go on
stream
there.
this.
Awesome. Yeah. Art is so healing. Art, not only, doing it, creating it, but also, enjoying it. And especially something that would be that high frequency. I can imagine how healing that would be. And not only that, but sound.
Yeah.
Sound. Yeah.
Now,
Sound
Jose
healing.
lives out in British Columbia, and he's got an interesting mix in his genealogy. So he's connected with the First Nation, which is all the different tribes across Canada affiliate with one another through the First Nation. He
Nice.
has a Hispanic aspect to his background, so he's an interesting person. He's invited me sometime after this virus is over to come out and participate in a sweat with him.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah. Very cool.
I think the native traditions that predate a lot of what we believe. There's something to be learned by connecting with nature through these native traditions.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it, the shamans are, I believe, well, we use the word shaman for medicine men, spiritual men and women in the indigenous tribes who understood what we call soul retrieval,
Mm-hmm.
who understood bringing parts of yourself, going into what they call the underworld, as I understand it, and then capturing parts of yourself that have been fragmented and
Now, that's what
lost.
Robert Monroe talks about in his books. That he was over time didn't realize it, but he finally concluded that there are all these elements of himself that
Yeah.
And his idea was he was helping pull them together, and once they all were aggregated, then they'd be able to move on to something else.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing in my out of body experiences that I've had happen is helping souls that or soul aspects. I don't know where
Yeah.
people who are stuck. I call it stuck because I feel they are. They're stuck within their own mindset of what that they don't know that they can move farther, and they're still in a role on the physical plane. They think they're still in a role on the physical plane, where I've helped them understand that they don't they don't have to do this anymore. That they've left that frequency, they've left that life. Yeah.
So we ought to do another recording on just that aspect.
Sure. Sure.
I could pull out a few examples from things I've read. You could talk about your experiences. I think that'd be a useful conversation.
Yeah, totally. I remember, and you said you touched on this earlier, and then we'll about ready to close, but about we take our mindset with us, we take our thoughts and our and our with us, and I totally agree with that. I remember I was in an experience, and by experience, I was in a neighborhood, and I was talking to somebody and asking, I don't know if I was asking him. Yeah, I was asking him about where something was, and he pulled out a cell phone. He looked at his GPS on his cell phone. I said, "Why are you using a cell phone? You don't need a cell phone here." He goes, "Oh, I know." He was at least aware. I know, but we all use them here.
But he could have also not been aware, right?
He could have. Oh, yeah. The majority of people that you come across in the lower planes are not aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're either dreamers or they don't know they've died, or that
Yeah.
kind of thing, or
Yeah.
thought forms. But I just that was so
Yeah.
funny to me. I said, "What? You don't need a cell phone here."
Yeah. It would have been interesting to let it go along and see what he came up with.
Well, he did he coordinated something. He goes, "Oh, you got to go down 3 blocks, turn left, or something like that." Whatever it was.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe, because we were so creative on the other side,
yeah,
perhaps he actually created a cell phone with an app that would do what he was, attempting to do.
sure, sure, yeah, totally. You're right. Maybe he just used that. Maybe that was the symbol for what he was showing me. But he did say, "Well, we all use them here." Because I said, "You don't need a cell phone here." And he goes, "Yeah, I know, but we all use them." So who knows? He could have been a
It's a
guide for me.
choice, you know.
Yeah, he could have been a guide. Guides show up in strange ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a choice. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jim. It's as always, it's great talking with you. I
Yeah,
hope I didn't do
I
most
enjoy
of
it. It's
it.
your perspectives. I learn no matter who I meet. I learn something from them.
Same here. Yeah.
We're working. When I say we, collectively, we're collaborating.
Hmm.
We add our own pieces, but it's a mosaic. Nobody has all the pieces. We keep putting them together and see what it looks like when we work with one another.
Sure. Kind of like integrating our parts, right?
Yep. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being here. We'll set something up to do this again. And thank you
Okay.
everyone for watching.
That
I
was enjoyable. Thank you.
good. Thank you. All right. Signing off.